Hey everybody, how we doing? Okay, so wanted to talk to you guys about a subject, concept, thingy that I think a lot of people get caught up in. Definitely a lot of owners, but also a lot of trainers get caught up in it as well. And I just want to address a little bit and talk to you guys about some of my beliefs about it. So basically, this is all about like just train the dog, right? And I don't mean that in some kind of flip or dismissive way, but I mean really like let's just focus on training the dog, and let's focus a lot less on trying to diagnose the dog's history, diagnose the dog's reason for whatever these behaviors are coming out. I mean, typically, like, owners are always going back through like stories of what's going on, like dog was probably abused, dog was probably this, dog was probably that, because we're seeing all this stuff. Trainers do a lot of the same stuff, and it's not that there's no value in having an understanding of the dog. There is, but trying to I just see a lot of people and a lot of trainers trying to dig deeper into the evaluation of what's transpired rather than just training the dog. And I think ultimately when you just train the dog and you just work with the dog, you'll find your answers, and the things that you need to resolve will be resolved, or will be clear as far as focus, what you need to get onto, what you need to work on, regardless of what the dog's past is, right? So regardless of whether the dog had an abusive past, regardless of whether the dog didn't get early socialization, regardless of whether the dog, and if it's just a fun thing, if it's, especially for trainers, if it's just a fun thing of like challenging yourself to try and decode what's going on, that's one thing. But if it becomes part of your like big process and your overriding kind of your overriding kind of like, not principle, but like I can't find the right word, but your overriding kind of like North Star, what you're shooting for with every dog. I gotta understand like where this is all coming from in order to be able to accurately train the dog. And I just don't think that's the case. I don't think you need to do that at all. I don't need to know what the dog is like. I don't need to know the dog's history. I don't need to know if the dog was socialized properly. I don't need to know if the dog was abused. I don't need to know really any of that stuff, because once I start training the dog, all of that stuff's gonna become crystal clear. That's the whole point of this video and the whole point of this message is, when you start training the dog, the problems, the imbalances, the lack, the insecurities, or if there's cognitive issues or whatever might be there, will all start to rise at the top as you start training the dog. And if you're doing a good job and you're watching the dog as you're working through the program, you'll start to see what's actually cooking with the dog, and you won't need to know the backstory. And to be perfectly honest, for the most part, you never really can know the backstory, like truly. There's exceptions where people know the history completely, but for the most part, most of these rescue dogs, people have no idea. People are taking stabs, taking guesses and stuff. We just don't know. So it's, for me, I think it's a big waste of time, unless, like I said, it's just something that's kind of a pastime or something that's fun to do. But to get caught up in it as an owner or as a trainer and let it be kind of your overriding, I still can't find that right word, but that overriding, I'm gonna use North Star because it's the only one I can come up with, but focal point. Focal point's a better word, right? Better choice. If it becomes your overriding training focal point, I think you're really barking up the wrong tree. I think you're wasting time, and I think you're not focused on what you need to be focused on, right? You're focused on stuff that, for one, you can't really know for sure, and two, it probably doesn't really matter in the end. What really matters is training the dog, spending time working with the dog, challenging the dog, putting the dog through your program, and then seeing what comes back to you. That's the feedback, that's the information. It's 1,000 times more valuable than any guesses or stabs or at what do you think's happened or anything like that. 1,000, maybe 1,000,000 times more valuable. Train the dog, put him through the program, and get the feedback. Get the feedback from the dog. Where are we struggling? What's the body language look around other dogs? How is the dog around people? Da 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 da. And if the dog is nervous around males, it doesn't mean the dog was abused by a male. It just might mean that the dog never had exposure to a male. But the point is, it doesn't change any of it, right? It doesn't change if the dog was abused by a male or if the dog never had exposure to a male human being I'm talking about, because you're still gonna do the same stuff regardless of what the hell's happened. It doesn't matter. If the dog has got weird stuff with males, you gotta figure out how to get the dog comfortable with males. If the dog is uncomfortable with dogs, regardless of whether he wasn't properly socialized, removed from the litter too early, or was a bratty, it doesn't matter. None of that matters. Train the dog, work with the dog. If it's got dog issues, put him around dogs, and like, safely of course, but get feedback of what's cooking. What is the dog doing? Oh wow, he's really uptight in these kind of situations. He doesn't respond well with these kinds of attitudes or energies or behaviors from other dogs, or when things get too intense or escalated, he freaks out. Cool, now that's what we gotta work on, right? It doesn't matter what the freaking backstory is or could have been. Just train the damn dog. Just train, for God's sake, just train the damn dog. Stop worrying, like, and I know most trainers probably have gotten away from this. I mean, I see people talking about it, but I think for owners, this is an especially valuable message, because I think owners get so caught up in the story, and I think for them, it's like a very linear, clear thing of like, oh, the dog is weird around males, so it's automatically connected as abuse. Or the dog doesn't like small white dogs, so it was attacked by a small white dog. Or it's just, so owners tend to really make up these stories a ton, and then they buy into these stories and they make these stories real. Trainers can do it too, but they make these stories real. They become real. They become a story that's told over and over and over again. This is how my dog is with this, with A, B, C, and D. This is how my dog is with certain kinds of dogs, or doesn't like black shoes, or doesn't like umbrellas, or doesn't like whatever it is. None of it matters, guys. Just take it from me. If you got a dog, if you're a trainer or you're an owner, and you've got a dog or dogs that you're working with, and you've got issues with the dogs, you've got problem behavior, and you don't know the backstory, it doesn't freaking matter. You don't need to know. You don't need to dive in. You don't need to stay awake at night. You don't need to write in your diary. Just train the dog. Put your dog through your program. Better have a good program, but put the dog through the program, and then see the feedback that comes back to you from the dog. And that will give you all the clarity and all the information you need in order to help the dog move forward, right? Regardless of past, regardless of possibilities, none of that matters. Whatever the dog is doing in front of you is giving you all the information you truly need. And that's the information you run with. That's the information that if you're gonna write something down, write that information down. Okay, cool, this is what we're seeing. We're seeing currently, today, right now, we're seeing problems in this kind of, scenarios. We're seeing problems in these contexts. Cool, let's focus on those. Let's get those better. Let's work through that stuff. But it doesn't matter where they originate from. It doesn't matter the backstory. It doesn't matter the history. It just matters, this is what we got right now. Let's fix this. Let's work on it. Let's address it, right? So if there's anything you take away from this little video ranty thingy, is that all the info you need is in the dog. It's not in the history. It's not in the backstory. It's not in that. It's all in the dog. If you'll do the right work and you'll put the dog through the right program, and you hold the dog accountable, and you keep your peepers open and your mind open, and you're watching, and you're studious and aware of what's going on, you'll take in the feedback and the information of what you're seeing, and then you'll be able to move forward in whichever fashion you need to help the dog rebalance, get rid of whatever issues that the dog's got, get the dog to a better space. So let's stop focusing on stories. Let's stop focusing on possible histories. Let's stop keeping ourselves awake at night like, I know Jasper was, blah, blah, blah. And let's just train the dog in front of us and let the dog tell us what the dog needs. All the information's right there. And you can't go wrong with that, because that's the only real truth. The only real truth is the dog in front of you, what they're sharing, and then helping the dog move through that. That's the only truth. All right? I hope that helps, guys. It's been on my mind for a while, and I just wanted to share it. I was gonna write it down, but it felt like one that needed a little bit of video juice to go behind it. Sorry that I couldn't find the word focus for so many reps, but I finally found it. So anyways, guys, take care. I hope this makes sense. Any questions about it, hit me up in the comments. Let me know, and I'll try and see if I can clarify anything. And this doesn't mean that if you do know your dog's story and it was a horrible story, it doesn't negate that. It doesn't take anything away from that. It doesn't mean, right? Like, don't send me comments and say like, but I know, like, I have the history that Jasper. That's okay. I'm not concerned, and I'm not worried about that. What I hope you take away is the training part will reveal the truth. That's it. So don't send me any comments about Jasper. All right? Talk to you guys soon. See ya. Bye.